Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I am very happy that I have one more time the opportunity to be with the brothers and sisters of Ahlul Islamic Society of New England and Zerkamite Shia Muslim Association. As Dr. Musalleh said, this is the second lecture of the lecture series Qur'an and Yemen. We will focus again on some other aspects of the commentary of the Surah al-Buruj, Surah 85 of Qur'an. And maybe the historic part goes with the next lecture, but last time we saw the traditional commentary, which mostly based with al-Mizan, a little bit from study Quran, al-Mizan, study Quran. Today I'm going to a little bit explain more some of the points which need more explanation, some points we didn't find to cover, and then we want to look something about the Western scholars. Some of the ideas or things have been mentioned by them. Some of them, to put that in perspective. So we have a summary for the whole lecture series. I'm not going to read that, but I have a summary for the last lecture. Which I'm going to read it because I think it helps to summarize what we did. And then maybe if people can have the verses in front of them, is one page will help. So as I said, in the first lecture of the Qur'an and Yemen lecture series, we'll look at the traditional commentary of the Surah 85, the Qur'an, Surah al-Buruj. This surah is an early Meccan surah, was said, and then according to Noldeke, it is the 22nd surah which was revealed to Prophet Muhammad. And according to the Egyptian Quran printing, which we can consider the Sunni view, and also Ayatollah Marifat, which we can consider Shia view, is the 27th. So all agree, this is early Mecca, and 22nd, 27th doesn't change much. This surah, like a few of the other early Meccan surahs of the Quran, start with 4 oaths. These 4 oaths have come in the first 3 verses. And then the fact their oath is evident by the letter Wav, which is among the oath particles, or what we call advatul qasam, or instruments of qasam, or instruments of oath. And then I believe these oaths determine the structure of the surah. Very important. I think many Western scholars have noticed the oaths at the beginning, but they didn't look to the oath structure and its importance. I mean, I think some separation of even Walid Saleh, which we are going to discuss his article, and just came maybe 1 month ago or less, or something around that. It's an important article, very interesting article, very readable, although I have some parts of disagreement. But he didn't look to the structure of the surah that way. Allama Tabatawi mentions it, but he's not completely enforcing it. But okay, overall, you understood it. Maybe it is there. And I reemphasize this is very important. Saj is there, but Saj of this surah doesn't have very clearly recognizable pattern. But although maybe we needed some detailed analysis, but for now, Saj, we put it aside. But the oaths are very crucial. And then I think answers some of the questions or suggestions, or I don't know, disputes of Western scholarship. And then we spent some time on the last lecture about oaths. So the 4 oaths in the first 3 verses themselves constitute what is called the object of oath, muqsam bih. So this is the first 3 verses are the 4 oaths coming. Then the second part of the oath is not coming immediately, which we have other examples of it. That's the subject of the oath, or the response of the oath. We all discuss about it, Jawab al-Qasam. And these are the verses 10 to 16, which are 7 verses. And they become in 2 clusters. 1, 10, and 11, which my opinion are the core verses of this surah. This surah's main message is these 2 verses. Even if we want to go to the ring structure, which I didn't go, this matches again with that kind of structure of the surah, halqavi, but because these are nearly at the center of the surah. But that putting aside, these 2 verses are the core message of the surah, And remember, the target audience, the primary audience is the mu'mineen, the small community of the believers is shaping around the Prophet in Mecca, and also the those polytheists, the mushrikeen, disbelievers, which are persecuting the mu'mineen. And then remember, always they say politics is local. Even Quran is saying historical events or referring to some stories, but the goal and intention always is contemporary, is to your time. Even when the Quran is telling the story of Joseph, for example, the moral message is for the prophet is Yusuf can and also be patient, prophet, the same way Yusuf had a good ending. The situation with you and your community will be good ending. At least God is complete control of the events. So remember, even those surahs which are later, and all the surahs have a message for the people at their time, and also later on for every people at all time. So at this 7 verses of 10 to 16, which divided the two clusters of 10 and 11 and 12 to 16, consist of the subject of oath or response to the oath, which is evident, when you have the oaths at the particle of emphasize and although the three latter verses, the enda is not explicitly there, but you always can add it to it. It's elided. It's very clear. And I can show you later on. So enda is understood. So this essentially does, the verses and 10, 11, as I said, consist of the core message of the surah, and its primary target is the polytheists of Mecca and the believers who were persecuted by these polytheists and unbelievers. Verses 12 to 16, emphasizing the omnipotence, that's the second cluster of these Jawab al-Qasam, or the subject of oath, is are talking about the attributes of God, which shows the God's omnipotence, omniscience, that kind of guarantee, or is the guarantor, these attributes of God guarantees that the promises that God swore on it, that this will happen in the verses in 10, 11 are guaranteed. So I may swear something, I swear to this, I will do that. Maybe I intend to do it, but maybe I have no ability. But so you see, this is another fact. I swear I will return your money, for example, with interest of 20% by 1 year. Okay. So I swear to for example, my son, I will return the interest of your money by 20% in 1 year. But the fact I can do it or not depends the listener, to judge me how I am. But the God, when you see the attributes of God in these verses, which you will see, it is a kind of guarantee. These promises in 10 and 11 are there by themselves, are important too, 12 to 16. And then we come back, the one which will be the focus maybe a little bit more in this lecture and then the future lecture. Verses 4 and 9, which have come between the objects and subjects of oath, between verses 1 and 3 and 10 to 11, and then to this 17 is and actually to 16, consists of a short story of the believers who were persecuted by the companion of the Teach, or the people of the Teach. So we have this story in the middle. First, God swears, take oaths, and then give a short story, and then gives, what will happen. But this short story kind of is an instance and makes the whole structure of oath more emphatic by giving a specific example. Sometimes you can give an example first and then take the oath. You give an example, for example, Palestinians or some people are killed or massacred. Then I swear by God, or swear by something precious, we swear by the honor of our people that their blood will not be spilled for nothing and there will be revenge. Okay. So I can say, this is usually the typical, but you can go also swear and then, or take an oath, and then endearing say, I swear that, so by God or by so on, that this is happening to our, this has happened to our, for example, brethren, and this blood will we take revenge. I emphasize the oath is not about what happened, that this event happened, because that's not the question about these stories happened. The structure of the verse, structure and the meaning is not, God is not swearing that the people of Deech persecuted those people. That's something else. So connection and then all the grammatical structure or syntactic structures are there. And then the 4 verses 17, 20 make another at the end, another short section referring to other groups of oppressors and transgressors besides people of Deech that are hosts of Pharaoh and Samud, which could not escape the justice and punishment of God, and their fate is another instance of the fulfillment of the promises stated in verse 10 of this surah regarding persecutors of the believers. The last 2 verses about the loftiness of the Quran is preservation. So if you looked at the structure of the surah 85 al-Buruj, we have the three qasams, and then we have the short story in the middle about a companion of the Deech, and then with some elaboration in it. Then we have the 7 verses, which are the cluster 2 and 5 in the subject of the oath, or Matsuma Alay. And then you have another short story of another group of people which are oppressors and transgressors on the earth, which will punish. Although the punishment and destruction is not explicitly mentioned, but it's understood, which is a instance of verse 10. And then the last 2 verses about Quran, and it kind of says, okay, what we are telling you is in a book, such a Quran, which is a lofty book and is a preserved, and make the 22 verses of the whole chapter. And its main theme, again, is a stern warning, verse 10 to non-believers, and a Bashara, good news, verse 11 to the believers. Our main interest and focus will be the story of people of the Deech, which is verses 4 to 9. These verses pertain to a particular historical incident. That will be our claim, which is mostly happening the claim for Muslim, nearly all the Muslim commentators believe that this is the Western scholars that some have taken it out of as a historical incident, believe this is about verses happening the hereafter, so is in future, and it's not historical incident, it's not about this life. Our goal is to examine, clarify its details and context. This clarification, why we do that, gives a deeper and better understanding of this surah. So again, a little bit fast, maybe we see, as I said, these 3 verses have 4 wabs in it, each of them a qasam. There is something here I have to come back after, but I go to structure, a couple of things I want to add. So this is the 4 qasams in the first 3 verses. This is the Qutila Ashab al-Ukhdud again. Remember, this is Qutila is like a curse. Like we say death to, for example, something, death to is some country or some people, or death to oppressors or something like that. That death to someone is like a wish. Qutila exactly means like that. Qutila Ashab al-Ukhdud, so maybe God kills them, or death to the Ashab al-Ukhdud. And then this Ukhdud is explained that it is a ditch, which is a big fire. Zat al-Buruj. Buruj means the fuel of fire, which is a fire which is a very well stoked, well fueled. That means a huge fire. It's not just fire can finish soon. And then as home goes back to Ashab al-Ukhdud, these guys, which death wish is given to them, which alayha, qa'ud. Qa'ud means sitting, or sitting on, this ukhdud I'm going to show you means like a khandaq, like a ditch, like some say pit, but mostly is elongated one, some like a one. So they're sitting on the top of it as home. Alayha, how goes to this nar zatul waqud, and or the ditch essentially, and then what they doing when sitting over there, home ala ma yaf'aluna bil mu'minina shuhud, so they are observing what is being done, shuhud, their shuhud, witness to what is being done to mu'minin, the believers, and then so these are bad people doing bad stuff or persecuting mu'minin. And why these mu'minin were persecuted, tortured, or burned in the fire? فَمَا نَقَمُوا مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا أَنْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ. What there was no sin in them, no mistake in them. I mean, we can read direct translation, except they believe in God, which is Aziz and Hamid. And then here a little bit we have the explanation what kind of God it is, what they believe in it. So you see, they were vindicative towards them only because they had faith in God and the Almighty and All-Laudable, Aziz and Hamid. Then this God, again, this Allah is such a person that to whom belongs the kingdom of heavens and the earth, and Allah is witness to all things. So again, we have some idea of a shaheed and a shuhud, and then shahid and mashhud. So, regarding the oaths, as I said, it is not necessarily we find a clear logical relationship between why object of the oath and subject of the oath. When, as I said, I swear to my, for example, swear to God or swear to my child, I will return your money on time. You swear to something precious usually, or you take oath to something precious. That preciousness is not necessarily exactly related what money you want to return or get back. And then you, as I said, there are other examples. Other Muslim traditional commentary, they're spending a lot of time. Why God take oath to this one or that one? Why is Shams? What is that? And the context of it, and they did this categorization. They spend time much more than the muqsamu, the object of oath, more than the subject, because what is God intended, the message. The oaths are to get emphasized, get attention. This is something important. But what is important is the subject of oath. But there could be some, Allah also said, there could be some connection, sometimes not clear why Washam says at the beginning of that surah. Sometimes they say it's about hereafter, or something about hereafter, then the things are taken about is somehow related hereafter, or some categorization. Here, you see, Yawm al-Maw'ud is about hereafter, and because they're punishing hereafter is related to that. Shahid and the Mashhud at least matches here. So that's not our what we are looking to, but somehow, but still, this is an interlude story. And then from this verse, you see the real subject of oath or muqsamu alay comes, and these are the two main principle. And الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق. So indeed, those who persecute the faithful men and women and do not repent thereafter, there is the punishment of hell for them and the punishment of burning. Okay, one of the thing interesting here, this is the principle. And look, this principle could be general. You don't need the interlude story. You can say the qasam, al-Buruj, al-Maw'ud, al-Shahid, al-Mashhud. Then you read this. The story will go for أَنَّ الَّذِينَ فَتَلُوا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, because this is the general principle. You don't need anything. Directly object and subject of oath can come together without the intermediate story in between, because this is a principle. And then one interesting here is mentioning mu'mineen and mu'minat together. This, I think it happens 9 times in the Quran, if I remember correctly. And then the 7 times of it is mostly in the surah, Medinan surahs. We have it, that the Quran explicitly mentioned a believing man, believing woman, that structure that emphasizes the woman near the man. And then here is one of the 2 examples in Medina, a Meccan surah. And then there may be something in it, because I didn't tell the story yet. But in Ashab al-Ukhdud, this story of these people of the ditch, there are 2 elements of it was known to people and stand more distinguished. When people remembering something, there are some features remember most. One is this fire, the whole issue of Naruzat al-Waqud, that people were burned by fire, that these believers were thrown in the fire, which is, that makes people feel about it. Like in Palestine now, we remember all are given hunger. There's a genocide by hunger. or ethnic cleansing by hunger, so that hunger will stay in mind. And then the other thing, Palestine, for example, we remember is the children. Now, 20, 30 years from now, the number of children and women that is stick in the mind. Here is the women. And there is a large, good percentage, usually that typical of the wars or other people, the women were martyred. And then also there is a couple of stories, and we'll see in find his way the Shia, the commentaries or hadiths, that there are a couple of women that with their child pushed to the fire or voluntarily jumped into fire. And there is another example which next lecture I will show you is interesting. There are some reports about some of these women which is stayed I will see it next lecture explicitly when they go to detail history, and I will read the hadith for you. So the fact the Quran is mentioning mu'minat, it's also maybe the role that, for those who know the story, anticipate that even doesn't explicitly Quran mention it, sometimes understood mu'minin can cover both men and female. But sometimes Quran deliberately emphasize that. And then this is one of the places. And then you have the next verse that you see this is the second premise. That was the punishment part. This is this verse 11 is the good news of it, or bashara of it. And look, this is the beginning of revelations. These are new messages. This is giving some supporting boost of confidence in the believers that, I know you're going to hardship. The other people have gone through that, but this is the principle of God. So like the people of which endure the persecution of a companion of the ditch, those believers which burn in fire, if you endure, definitely you go to the heavens, which Jannatun tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, and this is the real victory. Now, and so this is, as I said, is the important part of the subject of oath or muqsamu alayh. Then you have again in the batsha rabbika shadid, that indeed your Lord striking is severe. So that's one feature of your God, that these guys, they say, okay, you promised me, but I can F off the hook. So for example, you don't pay money to credit card company, and then okay, but you cannot get off the hook easily, or IR tax agency. These are guys that really come after you. Maybe you can avoid some other people, but some other ones are really coming after you. So this is kind of these subjects of oath, kind of the guarantees, this verse 10 and 11. And now we discussed it, that the punishment can renewed and continued. So these two goes for 12 and 13 goes for the verse 10, and then Huwa al-Ghafurul Wadud goes for the verse 11. Okay, the positive that God is the type of God is forgiving, affectionate, and Zul Arsh al-Mashi generally shows his power. And do whatever he wants. Okay, we don't have enna here, but you can easily read it with enna, and then you can see this is elided, mahsuf. Enna huwa yubdi wa yuid, enna huwa al-ghafur al-rahim. Or وَأَنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الْوَدُودُ. Sorry, I said Rahim. وَأَنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الْوَدُودُ. أَنَّهُ ذُو الْعَرْشِ الْمَجِيدُ. أَنَّهُ فَعَّالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ. So it's understood. This is clear, understood. This happens very often when we're talking in any language. And then okay, this bulk of the subject of oath is finished. And then we have another story. Again, it tells you it's not only, okay, those one point is that the people of the ditch maybe they were punished, actually. We'll see historically. In some way or another, the one who ordered it was punished. But maybe Quran is giving another example to people. Look, this is the rule. There wasn't one example up there. There are all many examples you are familiar. And then it gives you two maybe more prominent one. Okay, they would say this Ashab al-Ditch were some bandits. They're not very powerful. They were local kings. But Quran gives it two more historically more important example, which they were familiar. Hadak al-Hadith al-Junud, kind of reminder, like the guy threatened you, have you heard about this? If you don't pay enough money, what will happen to you? Like this Mexican cartels. I mean, I'm giving examples, don't get to all of it, but the threat is there. Hadak al-Hadith al-Junud, and which Junud? Fir'aun was Samud. So these two, that what happened to them, and these guys were persecuting believers, rebelling, and then all of these is said to whom? To the disbelievers, mushrikeen polytheists of Mecca, to hear it. Fir'aun was Samud, which stopped doing this persecution. Fir'aun was Samud, and then kind of by just mentioning them, and then people know generally what happened to them in the story of Moses, the story of Samud. So it's reminding that general principles of a verse stands true. So this generally says those who do not believe, kind of in denial, they cannot see what the sunnah or the tradition of history is, and then adds, despite what their denial, God is really God is really besieged them all around. They cannot, all is always in charge. God is completely in charge. And then I said, these are the two verses, which I don't want to discuss this. These are important, but because we want to go back to the historical part, these are, the loftiness of the Quran and also its preservation. Now, one of the things I said last time, which was, I said my opinion is a little bit different from Allama Tabatabai. I want to emphasize that. So, Sama Zatul Buruj. Look, the translation we have here by the heaven with its houses, or constellations or stations, and then you understand these houses or constellations as the combination of the stars is what people see. This constellation we discussed from ancient times, people know it, familiar, they look at it. But let me read it carefully, because that time I was a little bit going faster. And I would say again my argument that, look, Buruj is Allah says the plural Burj, which means that which is visible and apparent. Also, in the visible apparent is like adornments too, is like when somebody adorn themselves, this put on the face, people see it. Some like jewelry or something they wear, or makeup to kind of be seen, and then is the kind of adding to the beauty or prestige or so on. So that kind of the sky with the stars is heaven with the stars have this feature. It is then, but there is it is also used, as Allama said, it is commonly used for castles since they stand out in view when the Burj, or those have those towers in the castles, and the castle can see from far away. Or it is also used for watchtowers that are built on the top of city walls for protection. So these we all agree that is what is meant here as per the verse. Now he is referring to this verse. Allama is referring to this verse to interpret it. But I was saying, this make it more complicated. This verse is revealed later on. You cannot anticipate people to hear the verse of Surah al-Buruj first, know about this verse, have this verse in mind. So I think, and then the apparent meaning is more to the point, more easier. I think that's more common sense. But look what the verse Allah is referring, this verse of 16 and 17, chapter 15 are these. So وَلَقَدْ جَعَلْنَا فِي السَّمَاءِ بُرُوجًا. So yeah, that is right. This is the word Buruj is used. وَزَيَّنَّاهَا لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. وَزَيَّنَّاهَا لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. Okay, look, زَيَّنَّاهَا لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. Actually, this matches what I was saying. Buruj here, I mean, you don't put in the heavens towers or castles and adore them. I don't know with what. I don't know with what. With the stars. But then, but Allah, look, because of these verses, which are among, I think, complicated verses, وَحَفَظْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ رَجِيمٍ. And we have guarded them from every outcast Satan. Okay. So who's the Nazarene? Okay. إلا من استسرغ سمعه فأتبعه شهاب مبين. Look, this is, as I said, at the Karim solution, people put it on it. And the whole cosmology of Quran is complicated. Okay, this samas are protected with the shayateen, including jinn, and then and those who want to eavesdrop, so let me read the English, and regarded them from every outcast Satan, except someone who may eavesdrop, whereat there pursues him a manifest flame. So some of these jinns or shayateen, it seems, even according to verses of Quran, used to go to higher heavens, but now after the last prophet or sometime they cannot go up. They want to eavesdrop. Sometimes they penetrate a little bit, but they are confronted. Now, so technically, maybe in these higher levels of sky or heaven, like we have seven heaven, goes all to those stories. There are some things we can call them Buruj, not the stone-made Buruj, like the same way heavenly tablet is not the stone tablet or the electronic tablet we have. But Allah from the other side also believes these throne or tablets or so on are just not as symbolic. There is a reality, entity in existence in this hidden world, which can be specifically referred to as throne or tablet or buruj, which I do not dispute. But as we have different levels of meaning for tablet, the stone tablet, electronic tablet, and the heavenly tablet, sometimes the verse may be referred to stone tablet, sometimes the heavenly tablet. I believe in chapter 85 make more sense to refer to the common constellation, common buruj, common collection of the stars, which even zayyanaha lin-naziris, because from ancient times people look into it and have stories made about them. Some go through 12 of them, but we said from ancient times there were about 48, and then 40 modern astronomy added, 88, and all those stuff. So that's I was thinking the dispute, the difference is, and I think if you go to the Hadiths, even when the Prophet asked 3 times, 2 of them he said the Buruj means stars, 1 time said, okay, maybe castle type. I know Allah doesn't mean the Buruj here, the stone Buruj, a stone tower, a stone castle, but I felt that because especially these verses and all the other verses and all of this. And then although this I know brings some theory about what is Quran is, what is this Revelation 23 years means, how we should necessarily rely if the verses are earlier, limit our understanding what the first community believed. But this, I'm not saying this is a big deal and big change anything, but because I was differing with Allah, I thought, okay, let's a little bit explanation. But okay, let's go to the more important things. One thing I have to say about اخدود. Look, اخدود, literally again, it means a trench, a deep, long, narrow cut in the ground. It is only happened in Quran once here. Those words which happen once in Quran or a book, they call hapax logamenon. It's a technical name these biblical scholars use. It's Greek. And we have a few, these are important for some interesting reasons. I mean, there are two sides to them. Because only once they're using Quran or any specific book, you cannot use or understand the other usage of them for understanding them. And especially tafsir Quran by Quran, commentary Quran by Quran, sometimes the idea is that, okay, if I have a word like wu'ud, which we'll see, I have in this verse, what does it mean? If I doubt about it or I'm not very clear, I go see the other examples of usage of Quran and put them side by side and then get better understanding. All help us to understanding each better. But if we have one word which is very specific and only one time use the Quran, you cannot do that. But these verses are interesting. Words are interesting. Samad is like that. Some other words are like that too. I think kaf is like that too. And etymologically, it comes from the Arabic root khat Khatta, which relates to cutting, I think khatshe comes from that too, which relates to cutting or making furrows into the earth or soil. The word describes a long, narrow excavation or depression in the ground that is deeper, that is wide. So like khandak, like I think ditch is better than pit. Pit for me means like circular more. In modern usage, the word still maintains its primary meaning of a trench, ditch, groove, or furrow in the ground. I'm not sure how much time you have, but some of these Western scholarship, even recent one, 2019, want to drive this ukhdud from very complex etymological, in my opinion, gymnastics from Hebrew and even Farsi. They call that dude at the end from dude, and Farsi means smoke. From some akh of Hebrew, not even akh in Arabic. Which Walid Saleh, which I'm going to show you the article just come less 1 month ago, is very sharply critical from them. But I really don't think we have time for that part of it because absolutely wrong. I mean, it's good to learn that what kind of some of these academic articles which are published in good journals, but also with not much standards and saying, but this is one reason I want to say, yeah, this is I will come to these other ones later. This is the article of Walid Saleh, which I'm not sure we can go all systematically, but some of my discussion today is influenced by him. And although it's 2024, but I think I get aware of it or came out just recently. Maybe the volume is late, but then so this have in mind. Okay. Now there is one other couple of other important things. Yeah, maybe let's read the. Okay, yeah, because we are here, I can show it to you. Some of the stuff I'm saying, look, is like a puzzle we're going. I haven't put them all linearly going through, like all logically one line. We go sometimes branching and coming back from the branch, going forward, and then the things become clear. Look, as Walid Saleh discussed, nearly all the Western scholars, and including himself, to my regret, are thinking that some of these verses are later added. That is, they say there is an early draft of this surah, and then some editorial process or editing happened, and then some verses were added. All of them at least agree these were added in time of Prophet. For example, Angelica Neuwer thinks some added in Mecca, some added in so I will tell you which verses, and some added later in Medina. So he thinks twice. So we have three versions: first, second, third version. Ali Saleh argues no, it's only two versions, all added in Medina, which Ali Saleh has some point. And then, but I really disagree in some levels, and I think that the mistake, and the one can answer it very easily, you look into the old structure. And I said it partially last lecture, but say it again. What they think is added is from here, after 7. So, which 7? I mean, Adam Walid Saleh, I think includes 7, maybe. Okay, let me go. No, after 8. Sorry. So look, they think okay. Let me go show it to you in the one-page thing because it's much easier to see it if we have the one page. Where's the? Okay, just give me. Where's the? Okay, just me stop sharing 1 second, and then because it's harder to see it when we have 3 slides. Okay. Look here, this is maybe we could have done it from the beginning here. This is the Surat al-Buruj in 1 page. They claim these verses 8 9, 10, and 11 were added later on. And what is the reason? They say they are longer. I think really one thing I think somebody said it, and then the other people are picking on it up on it. I'm sorry, I think I'm sarcastic, but I think this is kind of mantra. They all accept it. Uh, and okay, I look that because partially the criteria of sorting the surahs, as we discussed in one lecture series before, one whole lecture series before, the chronology of the Quran was that the earlier surahs, the average length of the verses were short. By the passage of time, the average length of the verses in a surah increased, which is really reasonably true. But this is an statistical, event. And then not all the lengths of the verses of surah are the same. And then there are surahs revealed later on, but they have some shorter verses. It is an average on the whole surah, an average on maybe the block of the surah. Okay, you would see that the verse 8 is longer than typical ones. 9 is longer, which I agree. 10 is longer, and 11 is longer. If we did it last lecture, if we took those out, and I think some also took 7 out, but let me just, I'm sorry, to be sure that I will check it 8 later on, that there are some people discussing 7 or not, but because 7 is longer too, but it's not as longer. So let's see for now, 8, 9, 10, 11, at least this is the group. So they think the verses were like this because the other surahs which they see early Meccan, they come 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or here, and then jumps to 12. And then you see, okay, we have the 12 are shorter. And a little bit can flow, for example, we have قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذا هم عليها قعود وهم على ما يفعلون بالمؤمنين شهود. This I think should be there. And batch ربك للشديد. Let me just give you one thing I check, because I have this in mind. I have to check it whether it's really, or I can see it with you guys. Let me see. I check it one. I'm be sure is 7 is included or not, because I think if makes, I don't know why yeah, let's see. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I did this. Yeah, I think they include 7, which is absolutely more nonsense, in my opinion. As previously mentioned, this is Walid Saleh saying there is a consensus among scholars that verses 7 to 11 are a later addition to Quran 85. The whole thing I think is nonsense, but and I will say it again one more time, but and I agree, but they include 7 too, which I think even make the story even not clearly understood, because this is a crucial verse too. So they say 7 because maybe they feel it's longer, but even have the same rhyme. So it's not very different. Shuhud, qu'ud, wuhud. So even very surprising, they include 7. 7, 8, even somebody like knowing words, and 10, 11, and all added later on. So 5 verses. So that's why I thought that 7 should be, they consider 7, but it's absolutely nonsense. Yeah, they're adding 7, they weaken their view. And then they think this jump from 6 to 12. And remember, last lecture I said that the structure some guy give for the 17 verses. And then think this is the case. And then if that's the case, we have the qasams, we have a little bit interlude, 3 verses interlude, and then will be the subject of the qasam in the Bacha Rabbika Shadid. Only your God is severe in striking, or striking is severe, and then these verses. Okay, and then I think they just claim these are longer. But I was saying before that this is a statistical, and uh, and then even, for example, let me show it to you in a look. Even you look at surah, although I agree with that the criteria, the longer the when the surah is revealed later, the average the surah lengths become longer. But this is not always true. Look, this is one funny mistake I've seen is look, Surah Al-As. Okay, Al-As is early surah. Yeah, Al-As short. الإنسان لفي خسر. Okay, slightly longer. And then you have الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات تواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. And then I've seen one partition, and I don't know how they did that. They considered these two earlier and this much later. I mean, how can this happen? Without this surah is meaningless. I mean, it's like unfinished sentence, unfinished paragraph. Well, as and then okay, but this, I mean, so you believe we have to common sense believe this surah al-as was revealed at the same time. Revealed at the same time. We have other examples too. Revealed at the same time, and it is an early surah and consists of 3 verses with different lengths. One of the shortest one in the Quran, one is like the early Meccan surahs, and then one is longer, like typical later Meccan surahs. Okay, so the fact that you find some verses somewhere in the middle is longer is not any justification that you say it's come later, except the tradition I'm mentioning, or except explicitly there's a word in it which we discussed, this Surah 73, 74, or such a thing. I mean, I don't want to discuss it that now, but if we need it, okay, in the question time, we can go there. There are cases, there are at least one certain, and then maybe the second one suggestion, that the verse was added in Medina to a Meccan verse, which tradition is recorded to. And here, okay, if we go back to the Quranic verse, look, if you took 7, you took a very important part of the story out, that these guys which are sitting at the top of the ditch are looking or observing what they are doing to the believers. Okay, you take that out, so shorten the story. Okay, maybe say it's not essential, but I think this the whole argument is essential. But the point is this, taking out these 9, 10, and 11, as I said, these are the real meaning or the real goal of the surah. And then there is a detailed discussion. Walid Saleh goes with against Angelica Neuwirth, because Angelica Neuwirth just says, no, these are added because the Shahid and Mashhud are not very understood very well. They're ambiguous. And then later I noticed this is ambiguous. They open a footnote or adding something to explain it. Okay. But I'm saying these verses, okay, and then that's the reason maybe 9 is added a little bit Shaheed, and then 7 Shuhud. But look, the point I'm saying, just by the sake it is longer, cannot mean anything. Anna, because if you look at the structure of Qasam, Anna is the important part of the response in the Qasam. And then these 2 verses are important because make this thing relevant to the believers in Mecca. Remember, the message is believers in Mecca. This gives you an example. God is not telling just Ashab al-Ukhdud for saying it for the sake of it. Is saying it to be a lesson for the believers in Mecca and all those persecutors in Mecca, for both sides. If these verses are added in Medina, which Walid Saleh thinks all 5 are added in Medina, Neuwirth thinks 2 are added in Mecca, 3 added later on Medina. If they are all added, and then kind of Walid Saleh refute her, and then so we're accepting all in Medina, the whole sense I've got, because in Medina you don't have persecution. I mean, this verses doesn't communicate that. Remember, this Quran for some reason revealed to 23 years. And according to the postulate of Angelica Neuwirth, that first believers community is important because the whole Quran is a dialogue between God and Prophet, and that first community as a triangle is established, and the questions and fears, hopes, doubts come and go and answer. This is a clear communication And this is exactly the situation believers in front of persecutors are. And this whole surah with this structure is communicating to the people believers in Mecca. If we go to the Medina, adding the why you add this? What? Okay, make it. I know, because we have some traditional view, and I don't want to go through all that. That this is a little bit different view from the book we have. That the book was the mind of God, and and is pre-created and something like that, irrespective what happened on the ground interaction. So some of my view I'm commenting, as I said, is a little bit different. The same for Zat al-Buruj. I kind of accepted that framework. Neuwirth is working on it. That this must be scientifically they would. I'm not saying there are not deeper meaning, but let's not make it harder. Just look into the sky with the constellations, the beautiful stars, the adornment of the stars. It's hard to see that this is that metaphysical thing that somehow repelled the jinns. I mean, you don't know that until later on. So what the first believers would understood or hear was that. But I believe these verses are there. The fact they're longer, okay, they're longer, doesn't make any sense. You have any proof, and then is important the Qasam structure and is the main message. So although even all the article of Walid Saleh I liked, and the part which I disagree with him was this the part where he claims is added later on. But let's passing this part, then we can go to other interesting points he has. He has many interesting points here. And I kind of, some of the stuff I'm saying is not per se for this surah, is the methodology of commentary. We can learn from the Western scholarship. There are some interesting parts. There are some wrong and problematic parts in our own tradition and how we have to approach it, especially when they go to Shan and Nuzul hadiths. So both sides. Okay, I think this part I'm okay. Let's go back to the first seat. I'm thinking I want to go back to a little bit to that hadith part, which we didn't finish it. And see, is it here? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I didn't share it. So, stream. Okay, I need to move it here, I guess. Like, are you seeing the page with some green line and yellow line in the center?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. So because we reach here, we reach to Hadith part, and then I mentioned some of it, but a little bit I said I would do it again. So let's go through that. This is from Al-Mizan. Look, regarding the Buruj, I mean, as I said, even the Hadith and even the verse Allah show it was talking the Buruj are zinat or adornment of the heavens. So once the prophet was asked about the Buruj in the verse, by the heavens possessed of Buruj, which is the one we're working with, he said it means the stars. Then he was asked about the Buruj in the verse, he who appointed Buruj and in the heaven 2561, which we didn't look at it. He replied, it means the stars. Then he was asked the Buruj in the verse 45, Buruj 78:4. He said it is Qusur, castles, palaces mentioned. So, okay, so this is, you can see different context means different thing. So, yeah, I agree. Could be some cases the heavenly Buruj, heavenly fortified towers or castle, which is not the earthly. But okay, this is not a big deal. So just the important part we come here is this one. So here we hear some historical thing. Who are these people of the ditch are? Because I need to put some background, and then we go to the rest of the discussion, and then maybe the correcting the historical thing later on. So this is what has come in our commentaries, traditional commentary. They want to identify the people of the ditch. So concerning perish the people of the ditch, the verse 4, Tafsir Umami says this relates to Zonovas, which will discuss them next lecture, fully detail who these guys are, what the history is. It's interesting. And who instigated the Abyssinians to attack the Yemen? So Abyssinians, Ethiopia, from the other side of the Red Sea, attacking Yemen, this side of Red Sea. He was the last Abyssinian ruler of Himyar dynasty. He converted to Judaism, and the entire tribe of Himyar followed suit. He changed his name to Joseph, and that went on for a while. Then he was informed that there was some Christian remnants in Najrān in Yemen. The people there had long believed in Jesus and abided by the rulings of his gospel. The leader of that religion in that region was Abdullah al-Barya, the Baryamin or Baryas, depend of the Greek or other versions. They followed Jesus with the Jews who following Zenowas urged him to advance toward them and force them to convert to Judaism. So you see, this is kind of a sensitive story too, as a Jewish and Christian clash. Thus, he mobilized his forces until he reached Najrān. In Najrān, he rallied all the Christians there and ordered them to convert to Judaism, but they refused. He argued with them and did everything within his means to convince them. Yet they did not budge. They preferred to be killed than to convert. Zenowas dug a trench, filled it with the firewood, and set it ablaze for them. Some of them were burnt in fire, while others were killed by the sword and mutilated severely. The numbers of those who were killed, burned reached 20,000. Okay, the numbers always exaggerated, but for example, we have in the Iranian Revolution at 17th of Shahrivar, there was a square called Jalib. At that time, I clearly remember, we thought at least 4,000 people were killed in that square. We thought the whole martyrs of revolution were at least 60,000. But later on, we know that day at most 70 people would die, and the whole martyrs of revolution, not more than 4,000. So the number wrong doesn't change the whole event happened. The number wrong doesn't make it, okay, there was something big event happened in Jalib Square. And actually, this hadith more or less is correct. Historically, is correct. And there are some challenges, maybe this lecture and other lecture, I said, because we have rival stories that a little bit make things confusing. And then the Western scholarship, which have also their own stories. Okay, one of them by the name Das Zu Salaman fled from them on a racehorse. And that they went after him, but lost him in the desert. This new guy, Das Zu Salaman, returned with his the king, which the names are similar. The Zono was the Jewish king, which is killing these Christians in Najrān. But one guy escaped. They go after him. They couldn't catch him. These details are a little bit not accurate, but that doesn't matter. They went after him, but lost. I mean, the hadith narrating them, for now just reading. They went after him, or the commentary narrated. They went after him and lost him in the desert. And Zono was returned with his army with what he's doing. That is what God refers to the verse, which more or less is outlined correct. It's historical event in Najrān, the border of now present-day Saudi and Yemen, is the south, is the Jewish people persecuting the Christian. So those who God say perish are these Arab Jewish converts to Judaism, which throw these Christians into the fire. Okay, but the problem is that these are not in Quran. And if you adopt some of the Islamic sources or see them contradictory or non-historical, you may adopt that, especially if you remember Western scholarship with all these hadiths or Sha'n al-Nuzul story book aside, and then whether this is true, whether this historically has happened, or what is not there is true, because then you have other hadiths, then this thing is confusing. So one of the other examples is this, when the people of Isfahan, which is, we are not sure exactly, so that the translator says it is not clear what city this name corresponds to, but the narration is about the Muslim conquest of Persia during Omar Caliphate. I guess this is Isfahan, some guy is, some scribe maybe add something to it. Isfahan, who were Magi and Zoroastrian. So it's coming completely out of Arabia, completely out of the Jews, and go to Iran. Were defeated. Umar ibn Khattab said, these are neither Jews nor Christians, nor do they have a scripture. In fact, but then Imam Ali's replied. So these are the type of hadiths usually that shows the virtue or knowledge of Imam Ali that corrected Umar or helped Umar. In fact, they had a scripture said Ali ibn Abi Talib, but they lost it. The story that one of their kings was get wrong. And we said it slept with his daughter, another version with his sister. When he recovered his sovereignty, he told her, how should I vindicate myself of what I have done? Assemble your subjects, she suggested, and tell them that you consider marriage with one's daughter to be legal. Make it a new legislation among them. So he gathered the people and told them about it. What they refused to follow him, then the king dug a ditch in the ground, filled it with fire, exposed them to it. Whoever refused the new law was flung into the flames, and whoever accepted was burned. This may be, but maybe not this, my opinion, clearly fabricated, made up, or maybe relevant. It doesn't have the loftiness, the beliefness that people have, and then, there's some motivation to make it. We don't have, and the other thing is we don't have any historical connection with it. And then the other one is this, once Imam Ali, this was, I think, in Majma al-Bayan, which is better than Tafsir al-Qumi. Majma al-Bayan on the authority Sa'id ibn Jubair, but this is a little bit problematic. The same is narrated from the Imam in Durr al-Mansur on the authority of Abd al-Humayd. So Sunnis, mostly this must be hadiths among Sunnis. Durr al-Mansur is Sunni, and it's possible the Shia book, Sa'id ibn Jubair, I think is Sunni. That 100%. This one I'm not sure. I think it's Sunni, but these are picked up and come to Shia books. But then once again, Imam Ali sent an envoy or a letter to Archbishop of Najrān in Yemen. Okay, this is interesting. Asking him about the people of the ditch, to which the Archbishop replied. The Imam said, wrote, what you said is not accurate, but I shall tell you their story. They were an Abyssinian people to whom God sent an Abyssinian prophet. They rejected him, so he fought against them. They killed some of his followers and captivated the rest along with himself. Then they dug a ditch and filled it with fire. They gathered the people and said to them, those who follow our path should step back, but those who believe the religion of these people must cast themselves into the fire. So it has some similarities, but a little bit changes. Instead of being in Yemen, is Abyssinia. There's a prophet sending to them. It's not between Jews and Christians exactly clearly. Now, the prophet followers started throwing themselves into the fire one after another. Then there came a woman with 1 month-old baby. This is an important thing. This element of this 1 month-old baby is everywhere you see in the stories. So some part of it stick out, so you can assume some of these stories was in the book, in the oral tradition. People know about them something, and always there are among the truth in them, and then they collect it. They sometimes mix together. They sometimes blend together. When she advanced, she trembled and felt pity for her baby, but the baby cried out, don't be afraid, Mama, cast me and yourself into the fire. By God, this is indeed little sacrifice in God's cause. Thus she jumped with her baby into the fire. But this enhanced the idea. We said there's some important bravery by the woman here. That baby was one of those who spoke miraculously while still in the cradle. So, again, some elaboration to the story, connecting the story of Jesus and so on. And this is again in Ajmal al-Bayan on the authority of Tafsir Ayyashi, on the authority of Jabir from al-Baqir. But, this chain of Jabir from al-Baqir should read for you that maybe will lead dealing with the extremists of Shia. The same idea is narrated from Imam Durr al-Mansur, I think maybe Sunni book, authority of Ibn Mardawi and Abdullah ibn Nujay. And then you have Imam Ali said the prophet, but there is one short one. Imam Ali said the prophet of the people of Ditch was Abyssinian. Okay, concerning the people of the Ditch, Imam Ali said they were Abyssinians. So we have this collection of articles, all Durr al-Mansur or so on. Allama says one could arguably infer that the story of the people of Ditch includes a number of incidents that happened in maybe Abyssinia, Yemen, or Persia, that the verses refer to all of them. There are also some accounts which mention story without specifying any location. In some sense, you may say, okay, it doesn't matter. Maybe all of these are examples of this. The fact there were some believers, they were persecuted, and they were persecuted just for their faith. They didn't give their faith. They were burned in the fire. So God is telling that they will be rewarded in the heaven, and those who did persecuted them will be punished. But some of these all have the examples of made-upness. And then we can look whether the historical event is there, how close it is or not. But this is Islamic tradition, and some other, I mean, some other narrations are there too. I have not listed them. But one thing, some of the narrations which assign this to Yemen or Najran were very, very early. And then what is all Islamic sources agree this is a historical event. They refer to something happened in story, either in Yemen or Abyssinia or Iran, or some another example we have in Syria. I will show it to you. And it's a real historical event, and it's a punishment story, persecution of believers by this wicked, unbelievers, and the stories like that. Till we get to the Western scholarship, that things get a little bit different. Let's see if I have any question. Okay, I will answer the questions, okay, at the end. Okay, let me go to the slides because I want to tell you what the framework is. Where is slides? Okay, look, when you go to the Western scholarship, because we need to also kind of balance the time and then a little bit, maybe give the gist of it, not all the interesting part. Early Western scholarship agreed with the Islamic sources in 19th century. So there were not much difference. That is an historical event. And because most of Muslim scholars and most of commentaries believe it is in Najran, and if you look to the earlier sources, this time they are very clear. They're not relying on Israeliyat. That's the point. Some of the stories of the prophets, you need some details and addition came from the Jewish and Christian sources. They call Israeliyat to fill this detail and that detail. And that, and the later on people get sensitive to them because it doesn't make sense. They contradict the Quran, and then Muslim scholars get sensitive to Israeliyat. But this is different. This was clearly, none of them refer to this book or that book, a Christian book or Jewish book, and all kind of were clear at the early stages. So the idea is this was in the collective memory of the people. It is very well known to them, and I think it was clearly more connected to Najran because we see historical event to it, and then more what Islamic one. So it's something about Jews and Christians and Yemen and so on. So, but even if you go to those other stories, which goes to Iran or maybe goes to even Syria, which one example, which maybe I can show it to you, but it was historical event. But there are some uneasiness in some of these commentators that why Quran is praising some of these Christians and put them this high level. Why aren't they these Trinitarians? Aren't these Christians, even Jews who persecute them, are better monotheists? You tell these Salafis, which are really think, Jews are better than Shias. They think Shias are unsound belief. Isn't the Jews are more monotheistic than these Christians? And then so some of the scholars, even Muslim scholars, they were not very happy with this Najran, which is more dominant, more the sources, earlier sources, and then they start to look to other interpretations, because Quran doesn't say Ashab al-Ukhdud what they are, and as I said, is Hapax Logamenon. There's no way to find it from the Quran itself. So you have to go out. There were not much historical clue at least that level. So, and it could be there were many Jewish converts, and then there were people who didn't know about this. Look, the point you have to know, the Islam spread out. This event was an event in Saudi Arabia, in Yemen, and local, which we see people maybe when they know about Abraha and Field and around that time, before these big momentous events happen, they know about it. Like something even in Iran, some people know, for example, events happen in Kurdistan or something in Iran, Iraq, or something about, for example, For example, Peshawari, a guy in Azerbaijan want to take Azerbaijan, separated from Iran, join Soviet Union. I mean, his story had passed. I mean, now we have a country of Azerbaijan. That time wasn't there. Who remembers what Peshawari is? When things have passed, Islam came, empires fall out, and then people migrated. So then 100 years later, 150 years ago, Baghdad or Damascus, they're reading the commentary and they don't know what al-Ukhdud is. They don't know the whole story of Ukhdud is. And then say, okay, well, this is something. After you go to the letters of the Quran, it's talking some people, which are bad guys, throw some people in the fire, and which are believers, and watch it on them. And so let's see whether there are other stories are there. So interestingly, you see even the Tabari, commentary of Tabari, refers that some people think maybe the story is not referring to some historical event in Arabia, but it's related to the chapter 3 of Book of Daniel, which I'm going to show to you. And then later on, you see some scholars, of Western scholars, some especially the Jewish one, or Abraham Geiger, the first one, and some other one, not necessarily Jewish one, also inclined to this, because they were also always inclined to see Quran is imitation of Bible. They don't know about non-biblical parts of Quran. They don't care much about it. They always want to see Quran is somewhere related or copied or imitated or related to the biblical one. So they jump to the story. This Ashab al-Ukhdud is about chapter 3 in the book of Daniel. And in some level, even you go to some of those concerns about Jews, our beliefs are more monotheistic than the Christian Trinitarians and all those stuff, you may accept it. But we have to say, look, this is Walid Saleh's very interesting point. None of these scholars have ever, when discussing Ashab al-Ukhdud and the traditional view, which, as I said, I agree, and it's true, we see much historical evidence for it next, like historical evidence next lecture. Quran also talk about another group of Christians one more time, and his family is Ashab al-Kahf. Ashab al-Kahf was also a Christian youth, but this time they're confronting a polytheistic king that escaped from him and go to the cave. Here is a king, Arab king, which becomes Jewish, which we have to discuss then, and then start to persecute these Christians. But you can see that, let me tell you, you can see that it could be the inter-rivalry of Byzantine and Sassanid Empire. That Jewish Arab king was allied to the Sassanid Persians. The Najrānites, which are Christian, are allied to Ethiopian, the Christians, and also Byzantine Empire. So it's like you see some region, you have some, for example, Azerbaijan or Armenian, or some that they some Armenian people live in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijanis persecute them because they thought they're, for example, with the other side, or reverse. Some Kurdish people living, these guys are, or Shias, like let's go Shias. The Shias in Syria, that those guys are persecuting them because they thought they're with Iran and the axis of Iran. They are the other axis. So I'm saying, one says Quran has clear example of the Christians which were persecuted in Ashab al-Kahf, or is a later surah, but still Ashab al-Ukhdud, although Ashab al-Ukhdud are the persecuted, but those who are persecuted could be the Christians, which are Christian martyrs. So it's not very strange. Also this terminology ashab also has been used in different contexts, as I said, ashab al-kahf, and it's a few different contexts in the Quran. So it's just actually there's this one I know there is one. I had one other example in mind, which ashab al-kahf, ashab al remember I will mention it. Okay. So there are a couple, we can check that later on. Now I want to show you this Daniel fast because this is important, interesting. So look, if we go to this. So okay, look. the chapter in Daniel, I will just mention what it is. I will read a very small paragraph. It is a king in Babylonian. Is the time the Jews are in Babylonian captivity. That the Babylonian king had taken them from Judea to Babylon as a hostage. Then related to Daniel, which is buried in Iran too. And then he made King Nebuchadnezzar made an image gold of 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, so some big statue, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He then summoned all the governors and rulers come to bow or kind of get the homage to this idol. And then everybody was called to do that. And then some of the Jewish people which come from uh, Palestine to here had get position, official position. This is a long story. They didn't do that. And some people, local people, Chaldeans, they call the Bible, which they're not liking these guys, tip them off, telling the king, you ask everybody, all the officials come give the homage to this statue, but these Jewish guys didn't do that. And the king called them. Is it true that you didn't go bow or, respect the statue? They said, yes, we didn't, we were not going to do it. And the king gets angry with them. And said, these guys, they're named Shadrach and Meshach and so on, said to King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. He said, throw them in fire. So okay, maybe I skip. Let's read the sentence here. Now, when you hear okay, the king told them, now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, we are ready to fall down, and worship the image I made. Very good. But if you do not worship the idol he made, you will be thrown immediately to blazing furnace. So this is a fire. People say there is some believing Jews, which because of their belief are not willing to bow or worship an image, an idol, and they are going to be thrown in a blazing furnace. Then what God will be, then the king threatened them, then what God will rescue you from me? And I said, okay, no, our God is there, we are not worried. If our God is needed, will rescue us or not rescue us. So they throw them to that fire. That fire is so big that even the soldiers who taken these guys to throw them to the fire, some of them were injured and died. And interestingly, they throw them in the fire, they survive. Then, for example, the king says, then the king Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisor, weren't these 3 men that we tied up and threw them in the fire? They replied, certainly, your majesty. He said, look, see 4 men walking around the fire unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like the son of the gods. So the king himself, they see not only the 3 men are not buried, but they're walking freely in the fire, and there's a 4th one added to them. And the sentence of the king says, technically hints us the 4th man is son of the gods or angel or divine being. So in that sense, conclude that the God of these 3 Jewish people has saved them by sending an angel. And then the king goes and called them out, said, come out. And then they saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads saying the roads were not scorched and there was no smell of fire on them. So technically the story is that the 3 Jewish people stood their faith. They were not willing, which are companions of Daniel. So in that sense, the story is said Daniel was among this group too, kind of. They stood to their faith. They didn't worship the image and idol. They were thrown in the fire, and God saved them, and they come out. And okay. So in one sense, we read it, okay, this makes more sense. This is a miraculous story, it's a biblical story. It is about the Jewish monotheists fighting a polytheist. So why not this be the story? But the first thing, Muslim tradition didn't had it. This was one of the reasons from the beginning. And then, okay, I want to share. Okay, so, okay, yeah. look, but also doesn't match the sense of the verse, because the sense of the verses is not that they survived, but they are really persecuted and punished. These three young Jewish person were survived by out of the fire. But these story, because clearly the sense of it is that those believers were persecuted and burned, because God is cursing them first, and وهو على ما يفعلون بموائد الشهود وما نقموا منه إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد. Although I can say can fit for some aspects of it, but overall, I mean, very few minority Muslims said that this was a collective memory. But putting it aside, although it's not 100% clear, but I think the sense here is that really these are martyrs, not like those three young person are saved. But okay, that still leaves us with the option that some of the Western scholarship now switch to that. This never was the majority view amongst Western scholarship, definitely not among the Muslim view. Just mentioned this is some people's idea. But later on in early 20th century, some people came. I mean, the Jewish scholars also have more incentive to be like that. First, this is for now the way the Ashab al-Ukhdud was understood, but Najrān would be the dark point on the record, persecuting Christians by the Jewish king. But if you go to Daniel, is the Jews who are persecuted by Polytheist king, very famous one. But no matter what, the Western scholarship switched, and to surprise, many of them come to say, no, this is not historical event. This is not at all historical event. And it is this ditch which we are talking about is hereafter. Is a hereafter. And that's the strangest one, because you cannot read it like that. Basic Arabic, basic verbs, and then they are talking that this fire is the punishment they are going to get, fulfillment of this curse, in the hereafter. They are thrown in a fire, and then what does it mean? So what they would see, they would see what they had done before to the believers. Like this partially could be that when we go to hereafter, our records are they give us a record of what we have done, and then we have a verses of Quran. It says, what is this? That it hasn't left nothing out. Okay, that kind of. But the verbs doesn't match. The time doesn't match, and then these two verses are connected together. I'm not going to go to detail. Walid Saleh goes a lot. Although actually, I have to say this is now the dominant view of Western scholarship. And have been the dominant view of scholarship, and for whatever reason, they want to push the whole historicity out. It's neither Najrān, it's neither Daniel, it's neither Iran, it's nothing, it's a hereafter. The detail, I don't think now we'll have time to go through that, but Walid Saleh does a very good job to kind of refute that, because everybody has done this, have played with the verbs. Have give the freedom to them to change the time of the verse, break the meanings, and then a very twisted way to interpreting it, and then to make it so home ala ma yaf'aluna bil mu'minin ash-shuhud is something happening here after. But it doesn't make sense here. I mean, this is, then you go back, وَمَا نَقَمُوا مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا أَنْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ. I mean, you always can make it, stretch it out, twisting it, bending it, translate it wrong. He gives all the examples, and this is I don't think this is also, I mean, really, that doesn't make sense. And so, this is the three alternatives we have. And then, as I said, one guy said it in a footnote, and people picked up on it. And gradually, uh, a good number of them switched to this. Let me show you the options again. To this metaphysical view. Again, recently, the 2019, a Jewish scholar wants to revive this, but the reviving was very inaccurate, and many good examples of how you should not do the scholarship. One of them is that etymological study of the word al-Ukhdud, making part of it Hebrew, one part of it Middle Persian, combining them together. There are lots of detailed discussions over there, which for now, I think, let me see if anything else I want to say. I will stop. Although I'm not said, honestly, there are many, many interesting details in Walid Saleh's argument, but there are details. To understand it, appreciate detail, we have to go what is said, what is the grammar. For example, Ukhdud has a wazn fu'ul, which is not very common, but then some people said, okay, this is not Arabic word because it's not common, but then the examples you find are very interesting. So, for example, the word, one interesting thing, we say this one. One argument Walid Saleh used against this interpretation of hereafter. This is very interesting one. I would say this one, and I will stop. So, I know maybe I'm not giving full arguments, and now I give you three set. And even here, different examples. Historical could be, I'm saying it's Najrān, it's not either Syria, not Iran, or no, not even Ethiopia. We'll discuss it. And then when I tell you the story, what it is, what facts we have, what inscriptions we have, and when you see the historicity of this alternative, I don't think the other alternatives go in. There is a Daniel one, which actually, when I was doing it right now for you guys, I noticed it could be a little bit stronger than I felt initially, but still, I maybe give more details again next time. But again, even it's not dominant view of the Western scholarship, though Muslim one. And then, as I said, it doesn't match the part that it's felt is always understood that these guys really, the believers are really perished, not like these three people survive, which is with lots of miracles in it. And then even that Daniel book, how much is trustable or so on, that part of it. But this hereafter one, again, I think the way it's set is very twisted. But there is one interesting argument. Walid Saleh, okay, actually, it's here on the slide. So let's cancel it. Is this one?
There is not much question. If in case you want to continue for another 10 minutes, please.
Sure, thank you. Sure.
Up to you.
Okay, thank you. There are two verses. Let me remember, there are two verbs. Maybe I show it to you. Okay. Here again, look, the two verbs, I want you to be careful because some of the words are interesting. Like, for example, this ukhdud, which I said is one time in the Quran. Waqud is fuel. We know that, even Quran somewhere says that is the fire of the hell is such a way that it's a fuel is a stone, which usually doesn't matter. But the one we are interested here, look, so قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذ هم عليها قعود. So what is إذ هم عليها قعود? These أصحاب الأخدود are sitting on the top of the ditch and looking to the fire and the people threw on it. Qu'ud, this is put in the English meaning, above which they sat. Okay. Walid Saleh has...
Just sorry for another interruption.
Sure.
There was a question earlier, was exactly about that. I think he got the answer, but as you're explaining these verses, you may want to read that question.
Okay, I was thinking to do it later, but that's good. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the great. Okay, thank you. Thank you. What are the verses 5 and 6 saying? Are they saying that the cursed people made a fire inside the teach, burned the believers in it? And I wish I had answered sooner. Believers in it and sat on the top of the dish watching believers? Yes, that's it. Or alternatively, are the verses saying that the cursed people will be burned in the hellfire, will sat on the field? Okay, perfect. This question was perfect. Exactly what I'm discussing. Oh, perfect. This question is very good. Exactly. And actually, Walid Saleh has, maybe you have read the article, had a paragraph exactly put it like this. I couldn't make all the slides. The answer is the top one. The answer, I believe, the answer Walid Saleh says, and what I'm arguing is that this is not hereafter. This is that so many Western scholars said, this is right, this is a historical event, and they were sitting on the top of it. They made a fire to throw people in it and watching it, they're burning. Like sadistic, like gladiators throwing people in the field, they're battling each other and then kind of enjoying it. And is not the alternative. Are the verses saying the cursed people will burn in the hellfire and will sit on the fuel of the hellfire? No, because it doesn't, even you look to the verses and not the argument I'm going to give. Look, if that was the case, then the time doesn't match very well, because the verses, you have to separate the time of the verses. And then what does it mean? Hum ala ma yaf'aluna bil mu'minin shuhud. How they're witnessing to what they're doing to the people, which makes sense if they're top of the ditch and throwing down and then see they're burning. Quran wants to emphasize the cruelty, and then explain. Okay, now, but what is the argument? Which is exactly this. What argument against the second view, which I was where did I put this? Yeah, I was going to go. Yeah, okay. Let me, before going that good. I remember. Look, the verb I want to focus now is qud and sitting, and then some other interesting points could be about nagamu too, which I don't think I would go there, but the qud. Okay, what is we want to see is this. Let me go through that. Look, this word has come in Quran, generally, the root qa'ada has come 31 times in the Quran, but in different form. The form which we are more interested, is verbal noun, qud. And even you go to all the 31 forms, at least the majority of them, Walid Saleh investigate, they are not ever used in Quran related to hell, and then also, if you look to the verse, the grammar doesn't make sense that they are sitting on the top of the fire. You have to be inside the fire. So let's see the 4 verses we are talking is here. Look. الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا. Okay, this is the whole remember God when they're sitting or standing or on the sides. فإذا قضيتم الصلاة فاذكروا الله قياما وقعودا. Again, always the qu'ud is related to this world. Okay, and never used in connection to Jahannam in Quran or hell in the Quran. One time maybe related to heaven, but nothing to Jahannam. And نَكُمْ رَأَزِيتُمْ بِالْقُعُودِ أَوَّلَ مَرْعَى, is sitting, not fighting. And as a whole, عَلَيْهُ قُعُودٌ. Okay, عَلَيْهَا قُعُودٌ is not. Look, if you look at your English, one you are saying is that, or alternatively, are the verses saying that the cursed people will be burned in the hellfire. This is not exactly burned in. Sitting at the top, and then never using the Quran in connection with the hell, and never use in that meaning. So that's the Walid Saleh looked to all the different usage of it and said is never associated with the hell. It doesn't make sense, the meaning of always sit or so on, to be in the fire. So it is not about the hereafter, is right here, sitting on the top of the ditch and see people are thrown to it, and then you observe what is happening. So make it historical. Let me see if I can find, but at least read the one part from Walid Saleh too, and then I'll stop. Okay, let's see. I have this article. Should be on. Yeah, it should be here. Okay, but I have to go to this one. Uh, yeah, yeah, look. Yeah, this part, although is a little bit long, but I'm not going to read all of it. Just to get the idea. Uh, so, um, okay, the question is thus. Uh, so we close this. Oops. Okay. If the pronouns and the reference are rather straightforward matter and no one is disputing the reference, the question of exactly where the people of the ditch are sitting, this exact question is still to be resolved. Are they sitting in the fire or around it? Skull people of the ditch, which are the bad guys. Scholars who have read this passage as a reference to the Martyrs of Najrān have understood it to mean they were sitting around the fire, stoking it, maybe having fuel, while those who have understood it as an eschatological reference, exactly this is your question, very good question, have assumed it means that they were sitting in it. The question is thus, are they being tortured by the fire or are they stoking it? The root qaida use this verse happens in Quran frequently, and it's essential that we have an overall picture of it is used. The first thing to notice that out of the 31 usage of this root and its permutation, none is used to describe the hell. So it's not the type of Quran has a cluster of words used to describe the punishment in the hell, being in the hell, and fire of the hell, and so on. This is never used in the hell. And the verb is never used in the concept of fire apart from this usage. So it's not something about fire or something like that. Okay. This is to say there is no other instance in which anyone is describing the Quran as sitting in a fire, being tortured using this truth. Because if you go to that eschatological view. As a matter of fact, the Quran does not use the concept of placement upon fire. That's what I'm saying. As a concept of torture, placement upon fire, it doesn't make much. Rather, they use other verbs, mainly to roast or the root ba'da is however used in the concept of war, strife, and ambush. So it gives you all the list. Like let's read one of them. Thus the devil promises to sit on God's straight path. لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. You know, the same root. So all of them is related to this world, not hell, not like that. And then it lists all these and kind of show all of them, you know, discuss many different versions. And then maybe adding only this part, extrapolating from this use, the verse 85.6, describing not someone sitting between a burning fire, but someone lurking besides a fire in a menacing way, intending on doing something. He a little bit explained, but he conclude this. For dwelling in a fire in hell, the Quran used the other expression. You know, if you want to be in the fire and being burned, even punished, you use felnar. When it uses verbs, it uses other roots, never qaida, notably makasa or labasa or awiya, A-W-Y, to have refuge, or saviya, or laqiya, or arada. And then, so he says a translation of the verse, now we can do it that they, the people of Ditch, are around the fire sitting menacingly. So, you know, this kind of and how he concluded that menacingly is here is, I kind of, maybe I stop here because if you have questions, stuff like that. But all putting all the words, all the meanings of Qaeda, you clearly see is never used. The other second meaning of the questioner asked, that is not about the hereafter, but it is right now. I mean, it is historical past event, and that's like that. So I will stop here. Next lecture, I know there are many interesting things in Walid Saleh's article. Maybe I referred a couple of them again to finish this Quranic one, but maybe then I want to go to the historical one, and then saying, okay, when you see the historical one, which what evidence nowadays we have about history of the Ashab al-Ukhdud, because my goal was also somewhat to do the pre-story of Arabia. I'm interested in that. I think is interested, but we start with the Quran and we go there, and then we can kind of naturally see, oh, what the Quran is saying makes sense, and the historicity makes sense. So I will stop here. Thank you for your attention.